You think being nice is a virtue. You've been taught your entire life that being nice, agreeable, and accommodating makes you a good person. Your parents praised you for it. Your teachers rewarded it. Society constantly reinforces it. But what if I told you that your niceness is slowly destroying you? That it's not actually kindness at all, but a psychological prison you've built for yourself? That every time you're nice, you're betraying who you actually are? Friedrich Nietzsche saw through the performance of niceness in a way that should terrify you. He understood that most people who pride themselves on being nice aren't actually kind, compassionate, or virtuous. They're afraid, they're weak, and they're using niceness as a weapon while pretending it's a gift. This isn't about becoming an asshole. This isn't permission to treat people badly. This is about understanding the difference between genuine kindness that comes from strength and performative niceness that comes from fear and manipulation. Nietzsche spent years studying what he called slave morality, the psychological framework that turns weakness into a virtue and strength into a vice. And at the center of slave morality is this toxic concept of niceness that modern culture worships. Once you understand what I'm about to show you, you'll never see nice people the same way again, including yourself. Today I'm going to reveal the hidden psychological cost of being nice. Using Nietzsche's warning about niceness wasn't meant to turn you into an asshole. It was meant to wake you up to the fact that you're betraying yourself every single day in the name of being liked. And that betrayal has a cost, a massive life-altering cost that you've been paying without even realizing it. So let me bring this all together and make it crystal clear what you need to do. The path forward, from nice to genuine. How to actually change. You've spent years, maybe decades, building the habit of niceness. You can't just flip a switch and become a different person overnight, but you can start making different choices today. Here's what Nietzsche would tell you to do, starting right now. First, start noticing when you're being nice versus when you're being genuine. Pay attention to the feeling in your body when someone asks you to do something. Does your stomach tighten? Does your chest constrict? Do you feel dread or resentment even as you're saying yes? That physical response is your authentic self, trying to tell you something. Stop ignoring it. Second, practice saying no to small things. You don't have to start by setting massive boundaries with the most important people in your life. Start small. Can you cover my shift? Number. Want to grab dinner at that place? Actually, I'd prefer somewhere else. Can I borrow money? I'm not comfortable lending money. No long explanations, no apologizing, no justifying. Just a clear, simple no. It's going to feel terrible at first. Your nervous system is going to freak out. You're going to feel guilty, selfish, anxious. That's normal. That's your programming fighting back. Do it anyway. Third, stop giving from depletion. Before you say yes to anything, ask yourself, am I giving because I genuinely want to and have the capacity? Or am I giving because I'm afraid of saying no? If it's the second one, that's not kindness. That's self-betrayal. Say no. Real generosity comes from overflow, not from emptiness. You can't pour from an empty cup, and trying to do so just breeds resentment. Fourth, get comfortable with people being upset with you. This is the big one. This is what your niceness has been protecting you from. Some people are going to be unhappy when you start setting boundaries. Some people are going to call you selfish. Some people are going to accuse you of changing, of not being the person they knew. Good, they're right. You are changing. You're stopping the performance of niceness that made you convenient for them to use. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. The people who push back hard, who try to guilt you, who get angry when you start prioritizing yourself. Those are the users. Those are the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Let them leave. You don't need people in your life who only value you when you have no self-respect. Fifth, practice being honest about your actual feelings and needs. Start small. Start with low-stakes situations. I'm actually feeling overwhelmed right now. I need some alone time. That hurt my feelings. I disagree with that. I'd rather not. Simple, honest statements about your internal reality. Not mean, not aggressive, just honest. Watch what happens. Some people will appreciate your honesty and feel closer to you. Those are your people. Some people will be uncomfortable or push back. Those are the people who prefer the nice performance version of you. Sixth, Rediscover your actual preferences and opinions. You've probably lost touch with what you actually think and want. Start paying attention. When someone asks where you want to eat, don't immediately say, "I don't care." You choose. Actually think about it. What do you actually want? When someone shares an opinion, don't immediately agree. What do you actually think about it? It's going to be hard at first. You might genuinely not know because you've suppressed your preferences for so long. That's okay. Start practicing noticing and expressing what you want, even in small things. 7th, accept that you can't be liked by everyone. This is what your niceness has been trying to achieve, universal approval. It's impossible, and trying to achieve it is destroying you. Nietzsche would tell you, stop trying to be liked by everyone. Start trying to be respected by the right people. The people worth having in your life don't need you to be nice all the time. They need you to be real, honest, and boundaried. Final warning. What happens if you don't change? Let me paint you a picture of where this path of chronic niceness leads if you don't change course. 10 years from now, you're still saying yes when you mean no, still accommodating everyone, still putting yourself last, still being so nice, and you're exhausted, burnt out, resentful, possibly depressed or anxious. Your relationships feel hollow because no one actually knows you. They know the nice performance version. The people who truly value you have drifted away because they couldn't connect with someone who never shows their real self. The people who use you are still around because you still have no boundaries. You wake up one day and realize you've spent your entire life being what everyone else needed, and you have no idea who you actually are. You've sacrificed your one precious life on the altar of being liked. And the worst part, most people don't even particularly like you. They like how convenient you are, how useful, how you never push back or create problems. That's not the same as actually being valued or loved. Is that the future you want? Because that's where niceness leads, not eventually. That's where it's leading you right now, today, with every yes you give when you mean no. Nietzsche's alternative, the person you could become. Now, let me paint you a different picture, the person you could be if you start changing today. You become someone with clear boundaries. People know where they stand with you. You say no when you need to say no, which makes your yes actually mean something. You have fewer relationships, but they're deeper, more authentic, more fulfilling. Because you're finally showing people who you actually are instead of performing niceness. You make choices based on what you actually want instead of what will keep everyone comfortable. You pursue goals that matter to you, not goals that make you look good. You have energy because you're not depleting yourself, constantly trying to please everyone. You have peace because you're not carrying around massive resentment. You know yourself. You have opinions. You have preferences. You have boundaries. You have integrity. You're not nice all the time. Sometimes you're difficult. Sometimes you disappoint people. Sometimes you create conflict. And you're okay with that. Because you know that being real is more important than being liked. That self-respect is more important than universal approval. You become someone who is genuinely kind when you choose to be, not someone who is compulsively nice out of fear. That's the person Nietzsche wanted you to become, not cruel, not selfish, but strong enough to be honest, secure enough to have boundaries, courageous enough to prioritize yourself. The choice is yours, nice or real. So here's where we are. You have a choice to make, and you need to make it today, not someday. You can keep being nice, keep accommodating, keep saying yes when you mean no, keep performing, keep betraying yourself. It's familiar, it's comfortable in a painful way. You know how to do it, and maybe part of you believes that if you're just nice enough, eventually you'll get what you need. Eventually people will appreciate you. Eventually it will pay off. It won't. Nietzsche would tell you, it never pays off. You're playing a game you can't win. Or you can choose differently. You can start being real instead of nice. You can start setting boundaries. You can start saying no. You can start prioritizing yourself. You can start being honest. It's going to be uncomfortable. People are going to push back. You're going to feel selfish and guilty. You're going to question whether you're doing the right thing. But on the other side of that discomfort is something you might have never experienced. Actually living as yourself. Actually being known. Actually having relationships based on authenticity instead of performance. Actually respecting yourself instead of betraying yourself every day. Nietzsche's final message to you is this: You have one life, one chance to figure out who you are and become that fully. Stop wasting it being nice to people who don't even really see you. Stop sacrificing yourself on the altar of being liked. Stop confusing weakness with virtue. Stop teaching people to disrespect you. Stop disappearing into agreeableness. Start being real. Start having boundaries. Start saying no. Start prioritizing yourself. Start being honest. Yes, you'll lose some people. They were never really there for you anyway. They were there for the convenient, nice version of you that required nothing from them. But you'll gain something infinitely more valuable: yourself, the actual you, underneath all the performance and people-pleasing. And you'll find the people who actually value that, who want to know the real you, not the nice version. Those people are rare, but they're the only ones worth having in your life. The hidden cost of being nice isn't just that you sacrifice your boundaries, your energy, your authenticity, and your self-respect. The ultimate hidden cost is that you sacrifice yourself, the real you, the person you could have been if you'd been brave enough to stop performing and start living. Nietzsche saw that cost clearly. He spent his life trying to wake people up to it. Now you've seen it too. You can't unsee it. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep being nice and lose yourself completely? Or are you going to start being real and finally find out who you actually are? The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Because every day you wait is another day you'll never get back. Another day spent betraying yourself in the name of being liked. Stop being nice. Start being real. Your life depends on it. Most brutal insights about human nature. This is going to make you uncomfortable. You're probably going to feel attacked at some point. Good. That discomfort is information. Let's tear down the myth of niceness and see what's really underneath. The first hidden cost. You're not being nice, you're avoiding conflict because you're afraid. Here's the question that's going to sting. When you're being nice, are you actually being kind and generous? Or are you just terrified of conflict and desperate to avoid anyone being upset with you? Be brutally honest with yourself, because there's a massive difference between genuine kindness and performative niceness, and Nietzsche could see it instantly. Genuine kindness comes from a place of strength and abundance. You have clear boundaries, you know what you stand for, and you choose to be generous because you want to be, not because you're afraid of what happens if you're not. But niceness? Niceness comes from fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of someone being angry with you, fear of not being liked, fear of being seen as difficult or demanding. Watch what happens when a nice person is asked to do something they don't actually want to do. They say yes, they smile, they agree, and then they resent it. They complain about it to someone else later. They feel used and taken advantage of. But they never actually say no in the moment. Why? Because saying no might create conflict. It might upset someone. It might make them seem difficult. So they sacrifice what they actually want to avoid the discomfort of someone potentially being disappointed in them. Nietzsche would say, that's not virtue. That's cowardice disguised as agreeableness. Think about your own life right now. How many things are you doing that you don't actually want to do? How many relationships are you maintaining that drain you? How many obligations have you taken on that you resent? How many times have you said yes when everything in you was screaming no? And every single time, you told yourself you were being nice, being a good friend, being helpful, being considerate. But here's the truth you need to hear. You weren't being nice. You were being afraid. Afraid of the discomfort of someone being upset with you. Afraid of looking selfish. Afraid of not being liked. Real kindness requires courage. It requires being able to say no when something doesn't align with your values or capacity. It requires being willing to disappoint someone when that's the honest thing to do. Niceness is just weakness pretending to be virtue. And the cost? You end up living a life full of resentment, doing things you don't want to do, spending time with people who drain you, all while pretending you chose it. Nietzsche would tell you, stop calling your fear niceness. Call it what it actually is. Inability to handle conflict. And that inability is destroying your life one small accommodation at a time. The second hidden cost. Your niceness is actually manipulation, and everyone can feel it. This is the one that's really going to sting. Are you ready? Your niceness isn't the selfless gift you think it is. It's manipulation. You're being nice because you want something in return. Now, before you get defensive, let me explain what Nietzsche understood about this psychological dynamic. When you're excessively nice to someone, when you go out of your way to please them, when you sacrifice your own needs to accommodate theirs, you're making an unconscious transaction. You're creating a debt. You're being nice now because you expect something in return later. Maybe not consciously. Maybe you'd be offended if someone accused you of this. But deep down, there's an expectation. You expect to be liked. You expect to be appreciated. You expect that when you need something, they'll be there for you because of all the nice things you did for them. You expect loyalty, gratitude, reciprocation. And here's what happens when you don't get it. You become resentful and bitter. Someone you've been incredibly nice to doesn't show up for you when you need them. How do you feel? Betrayed, used, angry. After everything I did for them. That reaction reveals the truth. Your niceness wasn't unconditional. It wasn't actually generous. It was a transaction where you gave first, expecting to receive later. And when the other person doesn't hold up their end of a deal they never agreed to, you feel cheated. Nietzsche called this slave morality. You can't directly ask for what you want. You can't be straightforward about your needs. So you use niceness as a manipulation tactic. You give and give and give, creating an unspoken debt that you expect to be repaid. And here's the worst part. Other people can feel it. They might not be able to articulate it, but on some level, they sense that your niceness has strings attached, that it's transactional, that there's an expectation hidden underneath all that agreeableness. That's why sometimes people pull away from the nicest people. Not because they're ungrateful, but because they can feel the manipulation underneath the performance. They can sense that your niceness is creating an obligation. Watch how you feel when someone doesn't respond to your niceness the way you expected, when they don't seem appropriately grateful, when they don't reciprocate at the level you think they should. That feeling, that resentment, that sense of being unappreciated, that's proof that your niceness was conditional. It was an investment you expected to pay dividends. Nietzsche would say, authentic generosity expects nothing in return. It gives freely without creating debt or expectation. If you can't do that, you're not being kind. You're being manipulative while telling yourself you're being virtuous. Stop keeping score. Stop creating unspoken debts. Either give freely or don't give at all. But stop using niceness as a currency and then resenting people when they don't pay you back. The third hidden cost. You've made weakness into your identity, and you're proud of it. Here's where Nietzsche's critique of niceness gets really deep and really uncomfortable. People who pride themselves on being nice have often made their weakness into their entire identity. And they've convinced themselves that this weakness is actually moral superiority. Listen to how nice people talk about themselves. I'm too nice for my own good. I just can't say no to people. I'm a people pleaser. I always put others first. Notice the language? They're describing weakness, inability, lack of boundaries, but framing it as a character trait. Sometimes even as a flaw they're oddly proud of. Nietzsche would say, you've taken your inability to stand up for yourself, your fear of conflict, your desperate need to be liked, and you've rebranded it as virtue. You've made your powerlessness into your identity. And here's the really insidious part. You've started to need it. Your niceness has become how you get value, how you feel important, how you earn your place in relationships. Think about it. If you stopped being the nice one, the helpful one, the person who's always available and always accommodating, who would you be? What would your value be? For many people, that question is terrifying because they've built their entire identity and all their relationships on being useful through niceness. If they set boundaries, if they said no, if they prioritize themselves, they fear they'd have nothing to offer. They fear people would leave. So they stay trapped in the performance of niceness, resenting it, feeling used, but unable to stop because they don't know who they'd be without it. Nietzsche observed this pattern everywhere. People who make their weakness into a virtue, people who can't be strong, so they declare that being strong is actually bad and being weak is actually noble. I'm not passive, I'm peaceful. I'm not afraid of conflict, I'm just above it. I'm not unable to stand up for myself. I'm just more evolved than people who need to fight. See the pattern? It's weakness cosplaying as enlightenment. Here's what you need to understand. Genuine kindness comes from a position of strength, not weakness. You can only truly give when you're not giving from a place of depletion, fear, or need. The person who has strong boundaries and knows their worth, who could say no but chooses to say yes, that's kindness. The person who can't say no, who gives because they're afraid of what happens if they don't, who sacrifices themselves because they don't know any other way to have value, that's not kindness. That's self-betrayal. Stop making your weakness into your identity. Stop being proud of being too nice. It's not a virtue. It's a prison you've built and then decorated to look like a gift. The fourth hidden cost: you're teaching people to disrespect you and resenting them for learning the lesson. Here's a brutal truth. When you have no boundaries, when you're endlessly accommodating, when you never push back or say no, you're actively teaching people how to treat you. And the lesson you're teaching is, you don't respect yourself, so why should they? Nietzsche understood power dynamics in relationships better than almost anyone, and he knew that people treat you according to what you've demonstrated you'll accept. When you're nice all the time, when you never assert your needs, never push back, never create consequences for bad behavior, you're showing people that they can treat you however they want. And you'll still be there, still be nice, still be available. Think about the people in your life who take advantage of you, the ones who only call when they need something, the ones who cancel plans at the last minute, the ones who never reciprocate, the ones who treat you like an option while you treat them like a priority. Are you angry at them for using you? Here's the hard truth. You taught them to do it. Every time they disrespected your time and you said no problem, you taught them. Your time isn't valuable. Every time they canceled on you and you said, don't worry about it, you taught them your plans don't matter. Every time they took from you without giving back and you kept giving, you taught them that's acceptable. Your niceness trained them to disrespect you, and now you resent them for learning the lesson you taught. Nietzsche would say, people don't respect niceness, they respect boundaries. They respect people who value themselves enough to enforce limits. When you have no boundaries, when you're infinitely flexible and accommodating, people unconsciously categorize you as someone without self-respect, and they treat you accordingly. This doesn't make them bad people necessarily. It makes them human. Humans respond to the standards you set and enforce. If you set no standards, if you accept everything, if you never create consequences for being treated poorly, people will treat you poorly. Not because they're trying to hurt you, but because you've demonstrated that it's acceptable. And here's the pattern that's probably playing out in your life right now. You're nice and accommodating to someone. They take advantage of that. You stay nice because you're afraid of conflict. They take more advantage. You start to resent them, but still don't say anything. The resentment builds. Eventually, you either explode in anger or you pull away completely. And they're confused because, from their perspective, you never indicated there was a problem. You were always so nice. This is the cycle of the nice person. Be endlessly accommodating, get walked on, build resentment, explode or disappear. Blame the other person for not reading your mind. Nietzsche would tell you, stop this cycle, set boundaries, enforce them, say no, create consequences for bad behavior. And yes, some people will get upset. Some people will call you difficult or selfish. Good. Those are the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Those are the people who were using you. Let them be upset and leave. The people worth having in your life will respect your boundaries. They'll actually like you more when you have self-respect and standards. Stop resenting people for treating you exactly how you taught them to treat you. Start respecting yourself enough to enforce boundaries. And watch how your relationships transform. The fifth hidden cost. You've confused niceness with goodness. They're not the same thing. This might be the most important distinction Nietzsche would want you to understand. Being nice and being good are completely different things, and you've been confusing them your entire life. Nice is about behavior. It's about being pleasant, agreeable, conflict avoidant, accommodating. It's about making other people comfortable and never rocking the boat. Good is about character and values. It's about integrity, honesty, courage, standing up for what's right even when it's uncomfortable. You can be nice without being good. In fact, many people use niceness as a substitute for actual goodness. Here's what that looks like in real life. Someone is being mistreated in front of you. Maybe a colleague is being bullied. Maybe someone's making racist comments. Maybe a friend is being talked about viciously behind their back. The nice person stays silent. Why? Because speaking up would create conflict. It would make people uncomfortable. It might make them less liked, so they smile and say nothing. They tell themselves they're being nice. They tell themselves they're staying out of drama. But really, they're being a coward. They're valuing their own comfort and being liked over doing what's right. Nietzsche would say, that's not goodness. That's moral weakness disguised as politeness. Real goodness requires courage. It requires being willing to create discomfort, to risk being disliked, to stand up for your values even when it costs you something. Think about the people you truly admire, the people with real integrity and character. Are they always nice? Or are they sometimes difficult, challenging, confrontational when the situation requires it? The person who always avoids conflict, who's always pleasant no matter what's happening, who never takes a stand because it might upset someone, that's not a good person. That's a comfortable person who's chosen their own comfort over their values. Here's a test. Think about a time when you stayed silent when you should have spoken up, when you went along with something you knew was wrong because saying something would have been uncomfortable. You probably told yourself you were being nice, being mature, rising above it, not stooping to drama. But what you really were being was cowardly. You chose comfort over integrity. You chose being liked over being good. Nietzsche observed that slave morality, the morality of the weak, makes a virtue out of never rocking the boat. It says that causing discomfort is always bad. That confrontation is always wrong. That niceness is always better than honesty. But that's a moral framework designed by people who are too weak to be honest, too afraid to stand for something, too desperate to be liked to risk anyone being upset with them. True goodness is often not nice. True goodness tells hard truths, sets boundaries, stands up to injustice even when it's awkward, says no when everyone expects yes, disappoints people when that's the honest thing to do. Stop confusing niceness with goodness. Stop thinking that being pleasant and accommodating makes you virtuous. Sometimes the most moral thing you can do is be difficult, confrontational, and willing to upset people. The question isn't, am I being nice? The question is, am I being true to my values? Those are very different questions with very different answers. The sixth hidden cost, your niceness is making you invisible, and you're wondering why no one sees you. Here's something you probably haven't realized. Your excessive niceness is making you completely invisible. You've erased yourself in the pursuit of being liked. Think about the nicest people you know. Can you describe their actual personality, their real opinions, their genuine preferences, or are they just agreeable, pleasant, nice? Nietzsche would say, you've become a mirror. You reflect back whatever the other person wants to see. You have no edges, no distinct shape, no real presence. You're whatever you need to be to keep everyone comfortable. Someone wants to go to a restaurant you hate? Sure, sounds great. Someone shares an opinion you disagree with? I can see your point. Someone wants you to do something that doesn't work for you? Of course, no problem. You've trained yourself to have no preferences, no boundaries, no strong opinions, no real self. Because having a self, having opinions, preferences, needs, boundaries, risks conflict and disapproval. So you've disappeared. You've become background noise. You're the person who's always there, always helpful, always nice, and completely forgettable. And here's the painful part. You're probably wondering why people don't really see you, why you feel lonely even though you have lots of friends, why your relationships feel superficial, why no one seems to really know you. It's because there's nothing to know. You've erased everything distinctive about yourself in favor of being agreeable. You're so busy being what everyone else needs that you've forgotten who you actually are. Nietzsche understood that people are drawn to strength, to authenticity, to distinctiveness, not to people-pleasing mirrors who reflect back whatever they want to see. The most magnetic people are often not particularly nice. They have strong opinions. They have clear boundaries. They're willing to disagree with you. They're distinct. They have edges. You can know where you stand with them because they actually stand for something. But the nice person, you never know where you really stand because they're whatever they need to be in the moment. They agree with everyone. They accommodate everything. They have no real position on anything. That's not attractive. That's not interesting. That's invisible. Here's what probably happening in your life. You're incredibly nice to people. You do everything for them. You're always available, always supportive, always accommodating, and they kind of take you for granted. They don't really pursue you. They don't really invest in knowing you. You're just sort of there. Why? Because you've given them nothing to pursue. You're entirely accessible, entirely accommodating, entirely without mystery or depth or real personhood. Nietzsche would tell you, stop being a mirror, be a person, have opinions, have preferences, be willing to disagree, be willing to be inconvenient sometimes, have boundaries that make you less accessible. Paradoxically, when you stop trying so hard to be liked by everyone, when you stop being so endlessly nice and accommodating, people will actually see you more clearly. They'll be more interested in knowing you. They'll respect you more, because you'll finally be someone worth knowing, instead of just a pleasant, agreeable void. The seventh hidden cost, you're attracting the wrong people and repelling the right ones. This is going to hurt, but you need to hear it. Your niceness is a magnet for users, takers, manipulators, and narcissists, and it's repelling the healthy, strong people you actually want in your life. Here's why. People who use others are incredibly good at spotting who will let them. They're not looking for people with strong boundaries who will push back. They're looking for people who can't say no, people who desperately need to be liked, people who will sacrifice themselves to avoid conflict. In other words, they're looking for nice people. Your inability to set boundaries, your desperate need to be accommodating, your fear of anyone being upset with you, that's like a beacon to every user and manipulator within 100 miles. They see you coming, they recognize the pattern, and they know exactly how to exploit it. They know you won't push back. They know you'll sacrifice your needs to meet theirs. They know you'll accept being treated poorly because you're too nice to create consequences. They know you'll keep giving even when they never give back. So they take and take and take. And you let them because you're afraid of being mean or selfish by setting limits. Nietzsche would say, you're not a victim of these people. You're attracting them through your weakness and then enabling them by refusing to enforce boundaries. But here's the other side that's equally important. Healthy people, strong people, people with self-respect. They're repelled by excessive niceness. Why? Because healthy people want mutual relationships. They want someone who has a sense of self, who knows their worth, who can be honest with them even when it's uncomfortable. They don't want someone who's always accommodating, always agreeable, always nice, because they know that person isn't being real. They know that niceness is a performance and they can't trust it. Healthy people want to know where they stand with you. They want you to be honest about your feelings, your needs, your boundaries. They want a relationship based on authenticity, not on you constantly sacrificing yourself to keep them comfortable. When you're excessively nice, strong people sense that something's off. They can't quite put their finger on it, but they feel like they're not getting the real you, and they pull back. Meanwhile, users and manipulators dive right in, because your lack of boundaries is exactly what they're looking for. So, look at your life right now. Look at the people closest to you. Are they givers or takers? Are they people who respect boundaries, or people who push until they find your limits and then push some more? If you're surrounded by takers, users, and manipulators, your niceness is why. You've created an environment where only those people feel comfortable because you never push back. Nietzsche would tell you, change what you're attracting by changing what you're willing to accept. Set boundaries. Say no. Create consequences for bad behavior. Push back when someone treats you poorly. Yes, you'll lose some people. Good. Those are the users. The people who were only there because you had no boundaries. But you'll create space for the right people. The strong, healthy people who want mutual respect and authentic connection. The people who will actually value you instead of using you. Stop being nice to everyone and start being selective about who earns your kindness. That selectivity is what makes kindness valuable. The eighth hidden cost. You've lost your ability to be honest, and your relationships are dying because of it. Here's a question that might sting. When was the last time you were completely honest with someone about how you actually feel? Not nice, not diplomatic, not carefully worded to avoid any potential discomfort. Actually honest. If you can't remember, your niceness has cost you something critical, your ability to be real with the people in your life. Nietzsche understood that authenticity requires the courage to be honest, even when that honesty creates discomfort. But nice people can't do that. They've trained themselves to never say anything that might upset someone, so they lie. Not big, obvious lies, small, constant lies of omission and performance. How are you? I'm great. Actually feeling terrible, but too nice to burden anyone. Want to go to that restaurant? Sure, sounds good. Actually hate that place, but too nice to say so. Can you help me with this? Of course. Actually completely overwhelmed, but too nice to say no. Every single one of those interactions is a tiny betrayal of yourself, a tiny moment where you chose being liked over being real. And you tell yourself, it doesn't matter. They're just small things. It's not worth creating conflict over. But here's what Nietzsche would tell you. Those small dishonesties compound. They build up. And eventually, you've created relationships that are entirely based on a performance of who you think you should be, rather than who you actually are. Your friends don't actually know you. They know the nice version you perform for them. Your partner doesn't know you. They know the accommodating version who never pushes back. Your family doesn't know you. They know the dutiful version who does what's expected. And you feel profoundly lonely, because no one actually knows the real you. How could they? You never show them. You're too busy being nice. Here's what probably happening. You have lots of surface-level relationships. Lots of people who would describe you as nice, friendly, helpful. But very few people who actually know what you think, what you feel, what you need, what you're struggling with. Because you've never told them. Because telling them would risk them seeing you as difficult, needy, problematic. So you keep it all inside and stay nice on the outside. Nietzsche would say, relationships without honesty aren't real relationships, they're performances. And you can't have genuine intimacy or connection while you're performing. True connection requires vulnerability. It requires honesty. It requires being willing to say things that might create discomfort or conflict. Actually, I can't help you with that. I'm overwhelmed right now. I need to be honest. That hurt my feelings. I don't want to go there. Can we choose somewhere else? I need some space right now. I'm struggling and I need support. These statements are honest, they're real, and they're not nice in the way you've been taught nice should look, but they're the only path to actual connection, the only way to have relationships where you're actually known and not just performing. Start being honest. Start saying what you actually think and feel. Yes, some people won't like it. Some people will be uncomfortable. Some people who loved how nice and accommodating you were will push back when you start setting boundaries. Let them. Those people don't want to know you. They want to use the nice version of you that's convenient for them. The people worth keeping in your life will appreciate your honesty. They'll respect you more. They'll feel closer to you because you're finally letting them see the real you. Stop sacrificing authenticity for niceness. You're dying of loneliness in the middle of a crowd of people who think they know you but actually don't. The ninth hidden cost, you're breeding resentment in yourself, and it's poisoning everything. Here's the pattern that's probably playing out in your life right now, and it's destroying you from the inside. You say yes when you mean no. You give when you're depleted. You accommodate when you're exhausted. You're nice when you want to scream. And all that suppression, all that self-betrayal, all that pretending turns into resentment. Deep, bitter, toxic resentment that you carry around like poison. Nietzsche understood that unexpressed needs and suppressed boundaries don't just disappear, they transform into something darker. You resent the people you're being nice to. You resent yourself for being unable to say no. You resent the world for not recognizing how much you sacrifice. You resent other people for having boundaries when you can't seem to set them. And this resentment leaks out in subtle, insidious ways. Passive aggression, sarcasm, martyr behavior, guilt trips, silent treatment, doing what someone asked but making sure they know you're unhappy about it, complaining to others about people you are too nice to confront directly. Sound familiar? This is what Nietzsche called ressentiment, a deep, festering resentment that comes from feeling powerless, but being unable or unwilling to change your situation. You can't say no to people, so you say yes and then resent them for asking. You can't set boundaries, so you let people cross them and then hate them for it. You can't be honest about your needs, so you expect people to read your mind and get angry when they don't. This is the psychological poison of niceness. You're creating your own suffering by refusing to assert yourself, and then blaming everyone around you for the consequences of your own choices. Here's what's probably happening. You're carrying around massive resentment toward people in your life, people you're ostensibly close to, people you're endlessly nice to. You resent your partner for all the things they don't do, even though you've never actually asked them to do those things. You resent your friends for taking advantage of you, even though you've never said no or set limits. You resent your family for their expectations, even though you keep meeting those expectations without pushback. And you tell yourself, you're being nice, being mature, being the bigger person. But really, you're building a reservoir of bitterness that's poisoning your relationships and your own mental health. Nietzsche would tell you, this resentment is your responsibility, not theirs, yours. You're creating it by refusing to be honest, by refusing to set boundaries, by saying yes when you mean no, by giving from emptiness instead of abundance, by expecting people to somehow know what you need without you telling them. The resentment is the price you pay for your niceness, and eventually it destroys everything. Either you explode, finally hitting a breaking point where all that suppressed anger comes out in a way that's totally disproportionate to whatever triggered it, and everyone around you is shocked because you've always been so nice. Or you implode, getting depressed, anxious, burnt out, physically ill from carrying around all that unexpressed emotion and unmet needs. Or you quietly pull away, ghosting people, ending relationships, disappearing without explanation because you can't handle the resentment anymore, but you're still too nice to actually have an honest conversation about it. None of these outcomes are good. All of them are the result of niceness poisoning you from the inside. The solution isn't to become mean or cruel. The solution is to become honest and boundaried. Say no when you need to say no. Ask for what you need. Set limits. Have uncomfortable conversations. Stop expecting people to read your mind. Yes, this will feel selfish at first. That's because you've been trained to think that having any needs or boundaries at all is selfish. It's not. It's basic self-respect. And it's the only way to have relationships that aren't poisoned by resentment. Stop being nice to people while secretly resenting them. Either be genuinely kind from a place of wanting to give, or be honest about your limitations and say no. But stop this toxic pattern of giving while resenting. It's destroying you and everyone around you. The 10th hidden cost: you've forgotten who you actually are, and you might never find out. This is the ultimate cost of chronic niceness, and it's the one Nietzsche would say is the most tragic. You've spent so much time being what everyone else needs you to be that you have no idea who you actually are anymore. You don't know your real opinions because you've spent years agreeing with everyone. You don't know your real preferences because you've spent years accommodating everyone else's. You don't know your real boundaries because you've spent years having none. You don't know what you actually want because you've been so focused on what everyone else wants from you. You've disappeared, not physically, psychologically. You've erased yourself in the pursuit of being liked, being helpful, being nice. And now, when you try to answer the simple question, what do I want? You have no idea. Because you've never asked. You've never practiced knowing yourself. You've only practiced performing for others. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are." But you can't become who you are if you don't even know who you are. And you can't know who you are if you've spent your entire life being who everyone else needs you to be. This is the deepest cost of niceness. You've sacrificed your actual self on the altar of being liked. Think about it honestly. If someone asked you right now, what do you really think about controversial topic? What do you actually want to do with your life? What are your real boundaries? What do you need from your relationships? What makes you genuinely happy versus what you do because it's expected? Could you answer, honestly? Or would you hem and haw, trying to figure out what the right answer is? What answer would make you seem like a good person? What answer would avoid conflict or judgment? If you can't answer these questions clearly and immediately, your niceness has cost you your sense of self. And here's the truly tragic part. You might never get it back, because finding yourself requires the very thing your niceness won't allow. Being willing to upset people, to be disliked, to prioritize yourself, to say no, to have opinions that create conflict. Finding yourself requires being willing to not be nice. Nietzsche would say, you have one life. one chance to figure out who you actually are and become that fully. And you're wasting it performing niceness for people who don't even really see you. Every day you spend being nice instead of real is a day you'll never get back. Every relationship you maintain through performance instead of authenticity is a relationship that's keeping you from knowing yourself. Every yes you give when you mean no is another brick in the wall between you and your actual self. Stop. Just stop. Start asking yourself what you actually want. Start noticing when you're performing versus when you're being real. Start saying no. Start having opinions. Start being willing to disappoint people. It's going to be uncomfortable. People who benefited from your niceness will push back. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel selfish. You'll feel like a bad person. Push through it anyway. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something you've maybe never experienced. Actually knowing who you are. Actually living as yourself instead of as a performance of what you think you should be. Actually having relationships with people who know the real you instead of the nice version. Actually making choices based on what you want instead of what will keep everyone comfortable.